bundled walking here. I'm on a trail above Chiavari in Liguria, and I'm going to show you in a little bit, but there's ocean behind me. And you can't see it through the trees yet, but you will. Doesn't everybody go hiking while listening to Girl Boss Radio podcast? Isn't that everyone does? I'm just doing a quick little hike today, and I wanted to introduce a topic that I will be starting to cover on a video this week, which is about athletic identity. And as you all know, I do a lot of research to try to understand overtraining syndrome, the origins of it, and more specifically, the psychological aspects leading to this situation. A lot has been studied, not a lot, but more of the studies are on physiological components of the risk factors, let's say, leading to overtraining syndrome, also using physiological aspects for diagnosis and potentially treatment. I think we're mostly in diagnosis stage right now, since not a ton is known about it. But I'm really focused on the psychological aspects leading to overtraining syndrome, or risk factors for overtraining syndrome. I'm trying to be careful with my words here, since I'm in school studying for my master's degree in psychology, as you know, so that I can amplify the voice on this topic. I have had to become quite a bit more precise in the way that I speak of these things. So, let's see. One of the things that I have learned about is something called athletic identity. And athletic identity is a complex subject. It really has to do with the way we perceive ourselves as athletes, why we perceive ourselves that way, why we need to hang on to that perception, and it gets pretty deep actually. So I am going to be talking about this on a video this week because I truly believe that it's a pretty big part of why some of us are willing to do anything, even to our own detriment. Sorry about the wind, by the way. In order to continue our sport, even though it looks like it might not be best for us. So, I hope that it's interesting to you, as it has been interesting to me to kind of discover it. Long time no downhill. See, little downhill here, and I'm like trying to hold the camera and talk to you and go downhill at the same time. It's not working very well. As you can see, I am healthier, which is great. I am not sick at this point, which is really nice. I'm gonna head up to where I'm going, which is a church at the top of the hill that you can actually see from my house. Clarification, I'm not at the house where you saw me before. I'm actually at Mauro's family's beach house, which we are stealing. Let's see, hold on, you see that? That's ocean. Oh yeah, baby, that is ocean. You're gonna see more of it in a minute. We have stolen the beach house this week because the weather is really bad and icy and very cold, where you saw me last time, which is in Bobbiano, in Emilia-Romagna. And here, you know, they're not used to snow in some of these regions, and there's no like plowing and salting and sanding. So to be safe, we escaped to the beach house. We were told to escape by mom, so we're here. And I'm going to show you a lot more once I get up to the church of that view, which is the beautiful Golfo di Tigullio on the Italian Riviera. Sounds very posh, doesn't it? And we're sort of north, kind of tucked under the top of the left side of the boot of Italy. Okay, more coming soon. I just got back from the walk and I wanted to show you where we were. If you can see up behind me, you see there's a church up on the hill up there. Yeah. And that is where we just were. And if we're looking out again over the Golf, as I mentioned. And this is all along the Riviera, you see there, and all the way out to that point, look, that is Portofino, if you've ever heard of Portofino. Hi everybody, and welcome to A Case of the Jills. Yes, I'm filming on the floor of a bedroom. So today I really want to talk to you about something that has definitely piqued my interest since I started studying a lot about the motivations behind how a person ends up with overtraining syndrome. As always, I have to give you the following disclaimer. Overexercise is not overtraining syndrome. The ways in which they differ are many. When someone is talking about overtraining, most of the time they are talking about a situation of overexercise or giving them the benefit of the doubt. They're talking about overreaching. Overtraining syndrome is a very serious condition that affects many systems of the body. You don't have to have overtraining syndrome to understand what I'm going to be talking about in this video, but if you identify with a lot of what I'm saying, it's a place for you to maybe stop and think. Okay, so today's topic is on athletic identity. Most of the work I'm going to be talking about today comes from the work of Brewer, Van Ralt, and Linder, and I'm going to link below to their landmark study on this topic. Athletic identity is the degree to which an individual identifies as an athlete and the degree to which they need to be identified by others in that role. The idea is that by participating in a sport, a person makes a social statement about who they are and also how they want others to treat them. It's developed through a very compelling trio: acquisition of skills, confidence, and social interaction. Basically, the better you get at your sport, the more confident you become, and the more social interactions you end up having that are more positive to you as a result. For a lot of us, this can define how we feel about ourselves. It can define our idea of our competence, our self-worth. It very, very highly influences self-esteem and motivation. Athletic identity becomes how you present yourself and how you want the world to see you. So think about how you introduce yourself to other people, what's on your resume, how you define yourself on your bios and social media. I had to just look on my Instagram bio, and of course the word ultra runner is there. And of course I have to ask myself, why do I leave that word up there? I'm not an ultra runner anymore. I certainly was. So why am I hanging on to that word? At this point I tell myself that I leave the word up there so that it can provide context about who I am and what my experience is, so that people who are seeking some advice or guidance can know that I do understand the situation because I've been there. I want to be seen as someone knowledgeable who has experience, and of course it makes sense for me to leave the word ultra runner up there. However, I can tell you that I'm 100% sure that my initial reasons for putting the word ultra runner there were completely related to the fact that I wanted to be seen as an ultra runner. I needed to be seen as an ultra runner, and less about me trying to build credibility in a community. So why do we develop an athletic identity, and why do we let it sort of paint us into a corner? The fact is that being identified as an athlete, or even a particular kind of athlete, aligns with a lot of the cultural traits that we value. It describes how you feel about health. It describes something about your determination, your motivation. It's about you being able to set goals and achieve them, and we love that in our culture. And all of it adds up to glory. Who doesn't want to be seen this way? We want to see ourselves this way. We want other people to see us this way. I know for sure that I struggled with self-esteem and my own view of myself big time when I was running the most. We cannot forget about the fact that for some of us, endurance exercise can be a compensatory mechanism for other stresses in our lives. And so when you turn around and find that you can go run 20 or 30 miles and feel awesome about yourself and leave behind a lot of those insecurities, that's where that identity starts to really be compelling, because you need to go be that thing and do that thing to start feeling better. I needed that moniker of ultra runner. In one word, it was something for me to be proud of. And in one word, I had something that proved that I was worthy and good and smart. The word ultra runner made me feel like I was finally enough. Of course, the danger comes when we place too much emphasis on this association between who we are as an athlete and who we are as a person. So they call this over-identification. What ends up happening is that we make choices to support the sport and less choices to support our actual life. Relationships, hobbies, education, and ultimately our health can be jeopardized. We end up losing joy in other areas of life because we need to kind of get that positive feedback from the sport. This is when people start to believe that they are primarily an athlete, or that their primary identity revolves around participating in the sport. So Brewer and Petipas, and again, I will link to this study below, talk about a specific condition that comes when the athlete cannot push this any further, and it's called foreclosure. What ends up happening is that you've relied so heavily on your sport that when you have to turn away from it for whatever reason, you end up leaving yourself with no alternative. Because this feeling of foreclosure is so terrifying for us, we end up pushing and pushing and pushing to continue to align ourselves with that sport and to continue to maintain that athletic identity. So how does this manifest itself for the community of people that is susceptible to overtraining syndrome and or amenorrhea or any of the other health concerns that go along with those things? Well, first, you're going to push through injury and illness. You're going to push through pain and fatigue. You're going to ignore all those body signals right away because the information is not what you want to hear. You're probably going to end up making dietary choices that do not support your health. You're going to do things like ignore the need for periodization in training. You will have a very hard time. In fact, you may not be able to say no to invitations to go out on group runs, participate in competitions, participate in races. You might find yourself becoming what I like to call an athletic introvert. This is where you kind of lose social skills for participating in anything that's not your sport or sport related. I don't know about you guys, but I can count many occasions where I am guilty of being an athletic introvert. I can remember way back, especially when I lived in California and was in the middle of all the most beautiful trails. Planning for a weekend meant planning mileage. The rest of the time I would spend at home watching Netflix, rolling out my legs on a foam roller. When given the opportunity to socialize, I would usually say no in lieu of going to bed early so I could get up for the next morning's trail run. I'm not saying this is a bad choice, but it starts to not look so good when it's your only choice. So remember, I launch no criticism or judgment at you if you can identify with any of what I just said. I've been there, I've done that, I absolutely understand how it is. And I'm completely sure that hanging on to this concept of athletic identity is one of the things that ended up being a very big problem for me when I was training too much. So of course, we're gonna talk more about this in the next week or so. We're gonna talk about how to get past this, how to find balance, how to move forward, and of course, how to find peace. I hope that this video was helpful to you today. I know that this stuff is pretty difficult because a lot of the behaviors and mindsets that we have are things that start off as positive. And then when they start to turn and become negative for us, it's a real difficult conversation to have with ourselves. It is very difficult to recognize and very difficult to prevent. Remember, if you have any questions at all, you can email me at acaseofthejills@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook and of course on Instagram, where I'm almost at 1,000 followers. I hope that you're having a great day wherever you are, and I will see you again soon. Thanks for watching.